All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us again, I think second time
Yeah.
since we've been in this podcast format here, Bill Britt from Alabama Political Reporter and the VTV show. Welcome, Bill. How are you?
Hey, thank you. I'm doing great. Glad to see you both. And I am so pleased with the success that y'all have had with the podcast. I mean, I know when we originally talked about it, was it viable? Was there a market? And y'all proven that there was. And I want to congratulate you on your success, and may it even continue to grow greater and have more influence across the state and the nation.
Yeah, well, listen,
Thank you.
both of us, when we talked about that, both of us said we'll be done in 6 months. And so, I mean, it was, it's been a surprise to us as well.
Yeah.
But we wanted to get you on because you had a story today about the Republicans being a bit uneasy with one Thomas Hawley Tuberville and his coronation as Alabama next governor without really much of a fight or without really trying. And so, I guess what was behind it? What are their problems?
Well, it's interesting. It started out with, we've been hearing rumblings, occasionally over the last several months, but I got a call from someone that I respect, and they said, look, this is what's going on in the inner circle. People are not happy that Tuberville has just taken this for granted and is not facing any challenge. And then they went further to say, and we still have questions about his residency and whether he actually meets the requirements to run for governor, which is you have to be a resident citizen of the state for 7 years prior to running for governor.
Mm-hmm.
Which we have questioned. I know y'all have questioned whether he meets those requirements. To me, it seems like he does not. But again, the party has to decide that. Well, what I did is I started putting together some of the folks that had mentioned things to me in the past and started talking to people. And all of a sudden, there's a real thing out there that I've been assured that if there is a ballot challenge, which these are neither rare nor abnormal, if there is a ballot challenge, that Algop will hear that challenge, and Tuberville is going to have to prove that he, in fact, has been a citizen resident of the state for the last 7 years. And look, I had one guy say, listen, they're going to let him in anyway. And another guy said, no, we're going to follow the law. But so we'll see what it comes down to. The essence is, does he live here? And they don't like the idea of him running unopposed. They just don't like it because it smacks to them of a coronation rather than an election.
Yeah, I'd love for them to do the right thing, because look, I've looked at this. He doesn't live here. All right. If he could provide 7 years of state tax returns, I'd shut up about the whole thing. And I think most people would. I think that would go a long way. I sincerely think that if he would provide the 7 years of tax returns, that most people would just be like, yeah, all right, well, that's enough. Well, because there are technically other ways to prove that you don't live in a place. There are people who have, for example, David Cole, who got booted out of, the legislature and arrested for being in the wrong district and running. He had 7 years of Alabama tax returns, but he just he couldn't prove that he lived in the house in Alabama that he said he lived in, and so there are some other issues with Tuberville that could be brought up. But I think most people, if he produced those tax returns, would say, all right, okay, I think that's a wrap for this. But, I think the only reason you don't do that is because you can't. And I just don't have any faith that they're gonna boot him. I just don't have any faith that they're gonna boot him.
Well, I don't disagree with you on any of that. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of faith either. But, when you hear a couple of people talking about it and they are sincere and they're not, just lower level Republicans, these are Republicans with clout, I think that's true. I mean, I think the reason he can't show his tax returns like you is that he hadn't filed them in Alabama because he lives in Florida. And there no state income tax in Florida, and Tuberville, being as, let's say, frugal as he is, would want to avoid paying income taxes. I mean, who wouldn't? But there you go. That's my take on it.
So, Bill, these highly placed Republicans that have been talking to you, are these people that you think have perhaps a conflict of interest of their own, or do they have an interest in perhaps seeing themselves on the ballot?
Nobody that I spoke directly with has shown any interest in the governor's race. Now,
Okay.
David, this is politics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always an agenda. It's just
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know what their agenda is. But in this case, I was satisfied to listen to what they had to say. Look, I don't know that they hold any particular animosity against Tuberville. What I do know is that these are kind of the party stalwarts, the guys that have been around for a while and are vested in the party more than they are any one candidate. And we're also hearing this from the business community. And like it or not, the business community has a lot of sway in Alabama, and because they have a lot of money. But even small businesses are questioning how good Tuberville is going to be for the state overall. I mean, there's been meetings where small business leaders have gotten together and said, listen, he won't come talk to us. We don't hear from him. We've reached out to him to come speak to our group or our organization or our association. And it's just like he didn't have time for it. He has time for donors, small meetings with donors. And that's about it. I mean, at least that's what we hear.
Well, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Tuberville, did find himself in a situation where it was pretty obvious that he couldn't galvanize the Republican Party and get the coronation that he apparently wants. Who would be the opposition? Who would be the person, the most viable person in your mind, who could step up and actually give him a legitimate run for the money?
Well, on the Republican side, I think if Nathaniel Ledbetter stood up and decided to run, not only would he have the money, but I think he speaks Alabamian. I mean, he came up from nothing, made himself a success, and he knows the people. He knows Alabama people. He speaks their language. But I've talked to him, he's not going to do it. But I think he's the most likely candidate. But other than that, I don't see who's out there. You know who I think could beat Tommy Tuberville? And people probably call me crazy, but I think that Doug Jones, if he would decide to run, has a great shot at beating Tuberville, because Tuberville is not he's popular with a certain segment of the Republican Party. But if you talk to the business Republicans or the outside of the base, they don't care for it, because they don't see a leader there. And he beat Roy Moore, and Roy Moore
Yeah,
couldn't have
but I
been more
think
solid with the base. You know,
Yeah, but I think that's, to me, that's probably the least of reasons why I would say Doug Jones could beat Tuberville, because, quite frankly, Richard Shelby gave his blessing to Republicans to not vote for him. And I think it was,
that's
what,
true.
about 27,000 did, or 23,000, whatever the
Yeah,
number was, of them said, yeah, you're right. We're going to do what you said. And then the other factor there was, at the same time, simultaneously, you had black women who came out in record numbers to vote for the Democrat, Jones. And I think the combination of those two things is what made that happen. And right now, I think, you know, there is no high priest to bless not voting for Tuberville, in at least that I'm aware of. I know you're talking about people in the shadows who are talking,
yeah,
but
yeah.
there's no high priest to bless Tuberville.
Well, you're
And
correct on
then
that.
as it relates to, the black voting base, because of everything that has happened between Doug Jones and the ADC, I really don't think that there's going to be a unified level of support for Doug Jones' gubernatorial candidacy. So I
Well,
don't think he's as viable as
I
you
think you
do,
might be
or as
surprised.
Josh does.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know about
I think you
that.
might
I
be
mean,
surprised
I'm,
by that because I don't think that. Well, number one, I don't think the
talking
ADC has
to,
nearly
I
as
mean,
much
I'm
power.
kind of listening to, now I'm not saying that, I'm no prophet. Let me be clear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just speaking on what I know right now and what I've seen in the past. But what I've seen in the past, and what I've heard on this podcast, it makes me really, really not too clear on whether or not he's going to get that kind of support from the black community. So I
And
don't see
David,
it that
you're
way.
you're you're probably a lot more connected than I am because of Jones's success in the past, I guess is why I am basing on that. You probably have a deeper understanding than I do. I do think that if there was a way for the Republican Party to heal its wounds, they've got some great, there's some great candidates that are out there. I mean, Dr. Will Boyd, great guy, has a lot of charisma, and there's some people out there. If you could put together a coalition of candidates, look, it's a long shot for any Democrat,
Yeah, I
but
agree with that.
uh,
Absolutely agree
but
with that. Yeah,
if you don't run, you can't win, and I
Mm-hmm.
think
exactly.
I think
Also agree with that.
Trump is not as popular even here in Alabama as he once was.
Mm,
But look, if I had to be right about who wins races,
hmm
Al Gore would have won, John Kerry would have won, Hillary Clinton would have won,
hmm
because I did see those races leaning that way. And most of them did until the last minute. But I am no prognosticator, but my predictions are generally wrong.
Well, I'm going
Yeah.
to say this. You said two things that I absolutely agree with. One, it's going to be an uphill battle for any Democrat. I don't
Right.
care if it's my guy who is Will Boyd, and I've made no
Okay.
secret of that. Whether it's Will, whether it's Doug, or it doesn't matter. If it was the Apostle Peter, whoever it is, it's going to be tough for any Democrat to run and win against any Republican. But I also agree with you when you say you got to run in order to see if you can win.
Yeah.
And so I think the Democrats, whoever the Democrats ultimately select, has got to be somebody who is viable and who has the ability, I think, to make the case. And I will say this, I'll concede this much. And I know Josh and I are probably going to have this long running argument from now until May. I will concede this much. I think either one of those two men, Will Boyd or Doug Jones, can make a case. Now, whether or not they can win, we'll see. But I think either one of them can make the case.
Well, I can tell you, we could use an Apostle Paul right now or a Peter to kind of straighten out some of this mess we're in.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me talk to you
Yeah.
about the unknown God because we need that real
Yeah.
quick.
I love that reference. I love that. I love that. That's
Well,
nice.
I just, I do think that that Doug would have a shot at it. I think it would be, a Hail Mary type of a shot. But I think that there is a pathway for him to be elected. But I also think, importantly, I think that if they can. And I think there's some work being done, to do this. If they can get together behind the scenes and kind of come to some sort of an understanding, I don't think that they'll ever necessarily come to an agreement within the Democratic Party. But I think if they can come to some sort of understanding and everybody live and work together, and then I think that what could happen is a rejuvenation of the party where we put aside a lot of the old problems that, you're not going to put aside the bad blood. They're going to, Randy Kelly and Doug Jones are not going to like each other. There's no, there's no miracle that's going to be performed that's going to make those two guys suddenly start liking each other. And so I don't know what necessarily happens there, but I do believe that if there's a cooler head sort of situation where everybody takes a look at this thing and says, look, we have an opportunity as a party right now to build and to make some strides up and down the ballot in this particular election cycle, then I think that's a possibility. I don't.
Well,
I
what
I
needs to
think the
happen, though, Josh,
ADC at this
is
point is a really limited organization. I don't
well,
think I think we saw that back in the congressional District 2 race where they backed two different candidates before they eventually landed on Shamari, and both of their other candidates, one of them,
well.
Napoleon Bracey, just got
Let me
trounced.
Well, let me suggest something to you
Okay.
specifically as it relates to that. We're in a different political atmosphere now than we were then. Thanks to Donald Trump, we are in an atmosphere where many of us black people, quite frankly, are angry, concerned, upset, pissed off
Hmm.
about the reversal of civil rights gains and the ratcheting up of bigoted, even overtly racist rhetoric.
Hmm.
We're watching not only what happens to us in the black community, but what's happening to our Latino brothers and sisters. We're angry about it. We're upset. We're concerned. It's a different environment right now. And
So
I
would
think
you
that
not
we
then
are
choose?
coalescing, and I think that we are coalescing around those issues, and we're going to be looking for somebody who's going to be able to advocate in a very strong way and at a visceral level, as it relates to those issues. And I think the effectiveness of the ADC may very well be a lot higher in this environment than it was even 2 years ago in the previous elections. So, as it relates specifically to that, I think you may want to think about that. The other thing is, I think we're in a situation right now where I'm all for whoever wins, whatever Democrat wins in the primary. I'm all for it, but they need to fight it out. Just like there doesn't need to be a coronation on the Republican side, there doesn't need to be a coronation on the Democratic side. There needs to be they need to prove themselves. So Doug Jones, if it's going to be your boy Doug Jones needs to prove himself. If it's going to be Will Boyd, my boy, then Will Boyd needs to prove himself. And that's what the primary season is all about. So, right now, as far as I'm concerned, they need to duke it out. If Doug is going to run, then doggone it, get in the race, stop teasing, stop flirting, get in the race, duke it out, and then whoever wins, wins. And then we can talk about coalescing and moving forward because we know for sure what we don't want on this side of the aisle is a Tuberville governorship or really any Republican as governor.
Well, and the problem is, and I know that Tuberville is trying to be Donald Trump. I mean, everything he
Yeah.
says is, I mean, he uses the racist, bigoted language, whether it's against black citizens, Latinos, or Muslims. I mean, he's using the Trump playbook in a state that you may have that history, but I do not think that's who we are as a whole. And look, I have never thought that I would see the day where we're living in a society where it's okay to hold these views and publicly spout them like they're valid. But we live there. But Tuberville is exactly trying to imitate Donald Trump in every way, and he has every bad attribute and none of the charisma or personality.
Yeah.
So you got an imitation that is flat as a tire on a pickup truck.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. You're right, and it'll be an interesting play. It would be nice. Listen, it's going to be very nice, yeah, if we end up with a situation in which there are, some folks that are vying for both sides of this thing, and it would also be very nice if some people would uphold the law and and go about it that way. Listen, if Tuberville wanted to run for governor, I would not begrudge him that if he lived here. But you got to meet the laws,
Mm-hmm.
and I would
Mm-hmm.
say that to the Republicans who are going to decide this, and ultimately it'll land in a court at some point. And so I hope that the judges that ultimately hear this thing will do the right things and just follow the law. That's all I want anybody to do. If he's a legal citizen, then so be it. He's a legal citizen. He can run for governor and be whoever he wants to be. And if people want to vote for that dope, then they can vote for that dope. But there we are. But hey, thank you, man. I appreciate you
Hey,
coming
thanks for
on.
having me. It's
Yeah,
always
it's
fun.
this is fun. Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll do it again real soon. We're going
All
to
right.
we'll be around, and hey, we're going to put some information up here as well on where folks now can find the VTV show because I know it's moving. off to and doing a lot of the same things that we're doing here, and so there'll be some spots for them to find that on online and other places, and so they should be happy about that.
I appreciate that. We're entering the brave new world, and we're excited about it. But thank y'all, David. So great to see you, man.
Yes.
And
Good to
Josh,
see you
as
too, Bill.
always.
Isn't it nice to see David since he left us for greener pastures and just moved off to the big time?
You know,
Man, would
I
you
always
stop
think
saying
that's
that?
a sincere it's flattering us because see, we know how to pick great people
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
and promote
That's
the
right.
talent.
All right. Thank you, Bill. We
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys. All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
All right, take care, Bill.